Hello, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this training video. Today we're going to cover what you need to know for administering the Montana Point in Time survey for this year. First, we would like to thank you for volunteering for this very important survey. Just to let you know what the information you collect will be used for, the survey data informs congressional funding. It also assists local and statewide planning decisions and helps Montana service providers compete for grants and funding. This year, the survey will take place on January 29th, 2026. Just as it has been in years past, the survey is electronic. There is a paper version available. If you do use the paper version, you must print it yourself and must input the data collected into the digital version. Here is the URL for the survey, along with the code that you'll be asked to input. If you do have problems accessing the survey, a suggestion is to try a different browser. It works better and worse with certain browsers. The survey is actually already available via the link that we just shared on the previous screen. Between now and 4 p.m. on January 29th, the survey will be in training mode, which means that you can access it and run through it and actually even respond to it, but that data won't be collected. It does provide you with the opportunity, as I mentioned, for you to practice with it. And in fact, we recommend, especially if you haven't administered the survey before, to do at least one practice run through so you can see how it works. Then, starting on January 29th at 4 p.m., the 7-day collection period will begin, and that will collect data. The 7-day collection period will run until 4 p.m. on February 5th. Many of the surveys will be collected on that January 29th date. However, it does run after that to capture information on anyone who has missed that particular day. Data is collected on two categories of people: those that are unsheltered, which are people experiencing homelessness outside or people living in a place not meant for human habitation. This is the data that's primarily collected by you generous volunteer surveyors. Information is also collected from those who are sheltered in emergency shelters, domestic violence shelters, or transitional housing. And it is collected only from those who are homeless at entry into these types of shelters. So just to reiterate what the survey is designed for, you'll actually see this wording at the top of the survey when you go into it. The survey is designed to capture information on persons who are sleeping in a place not meant for habitation, or staying in emergency shelters, domestic violence shelters, or transitional housing facilities for homeless persons, or anyone who is otherwise without a home on the night of collection of information. And that in 2026 is Thursday, January 29th. For this next portion of the training, we'll go through the survey question by question so that you can see the wording of the questions and also get a little insight about the questions themselves in certain instances. The first two questions are asking about when and by whom the survey is being administered. Question 1 asks, have you completed this survey earlier today or in the past week? If this is being asked from the online survey, the survey will end if yes is selected, since it means that data has already been collected on that individual. The information about the past week is also relevant because remember, even though the survey date is January 29th, information is being collected for a week after that to make sure that everyone who was experiencing homelessness on that day is adequately captured in the survey. Question number 2 asks by whom the survey is being filled out. Question number 3 asks, in what city or town are you located? And it lists multiple cities and towns there. And if that doesn't apply, question number 4 asks you to indicate the nearest city or town. Question number 5 asks for how long you have been in that community. Question number 6 asks where the person was sleeping on the night of the survey collection. If this survey is being administered via the online survey, the survey will end at this point if anything other than one of the top 4 answers are selected, because in that instance, that person would not be considered homeless by HUD definitions. Remember, we did discuss what HUD is trying to capture by the point in time survey. For those selecting an emergency shelter, transitional housing facility, or a hotel or motel that is paid for by an agency, the survey asks for the name of the facility. Question 7 is very important for data purposes, so please make sure to identify this facility. Question 8 asks for the individual's initials. It may seem like a silly question, but believe it or not, this question is very important for data purposes, so make sure that it's filled in. Moving on to questions 9 and 10 about age and sex. In general, HUD wants to have answers to all demographic questions, so to the extent possible, these questions should be answered. However, also according to recent HUD guidance, the sex question is not required. So basically, do your best to answer it if you can. This question, question 11, also continues collecting demographic information, this time on race. And also, again, just be sure to make sure this question is answered because HUD does want to have all of the demographic information possible. These next 2 questions ask about income and non-cash benefits. These next 4 questions, questions 14, 15, 16, and 17, query into the length of time the person has been homeless. Both this length of time as well as disabling conditions are crucial for the chronically homeless calculation. So make sure they're answered completely and properly. Question 18 asks about whether the person has served on active duty in the U.S. military. Question 19 asks about substance use. Will drinking or drug use make it difficult for you to stay housed or afford your housing? And question 20 asks, have you ever had trouble maintaining your housing or been kicked out of an apartment, shelter program, or other place you were staying because of a mental health issue or concern, a past head injury, a learning disability, developmental disability, or other impairment? Question 21 asks, do you have a physical disability? And defines it as something that substantially limits one or more basic physical activities, such as walking, climbing stairs, reading, lifting, or carrying. And 22 asks for indications of disabling conditions, whether they are physical, chronic health, mental health, substance use disorder, HIV, AIDS, or none. Question 23 queries at the reason the person left the last place of permanent residence. As you look at the list, there are multiple options. Domestic violence is one of those options. And 24 asks additionally about domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking. Domestic violence questions are important locally, as well as HUD being interested in the data. So if there is any indication of domestic violence, that is imperative to include. Number 25 and 26 continue on about whether the person has used emergency hospital services or been jailed or arrested in the past year. Number 27 provides an abbreviated survey for where there is more than one person in a household. And you'll see that there is a orange add new button at the side. It will go through an abbreviated version of the survey about that second or third or however many particular person. Chris Sage will be your contact person should you have any questions about the survey. Thank you so much for listening to this training video. And most importantly, thank you very much for agreeing to participate in administering this year's survey.